Hey, this is Neal Bakshi, angel medium, spiritual life coach, and Reiki energy healer. If you really want to learn how to level up your life, you should be listening to the Time to Shine Today podcast with my good friend, Scott Ferguson. Let's level up.
Time to Shine Today podcast Varsity Squad. This is Scott Ferguson. I am super stoked to bring you on my good friend here to episode 377, Neal Bakshi. Neal's an author. He's a coach. He's really helping to level up the next generation of leaders to really find that inner peace and lasting success in their life. Neal has got a heck of a story. He went through some tragedy, really got out of a rat race, and now he's there to help people like even myself and you level up. I have 3 pages of notes, squad. So make sure you break out your notebook or digital note taker, sit back and relax. And if you know somebody that really wants to hear a message about leveling themselves up, please share this, or maybe like it or subscribe. It all helps our sponsors and affiliates, but most of all, it's going to help you. So I'm going to stop babbling. I'm going to get right into our interview with my good friend, Neal Bakshi, the author of Banking on Angels and a fantastic coach. Let's level up. Time to Shine Today podcast Varsity Squad. This is Scott Ferguson, and I have a legit, if you read one of my favorite books I always put out, Buddha and the Badass, I got my guy here, Neal Bakshi. He's a certified spiritual life coach, Reiki energy healer, angel medium, and best-selling author, which if you stick around to the end, I got a 5-book giveaway to some lucky listeners. He specializes in guiding highly driven, motivated, and aspirational next-gen leaders achieve inner peace, which I'm telling you right now, squad, I'm 51 years old, so I'm a little bit ahead, and I do worry a little bit about what's coming up behind me. But with people like Neal doing this, I feel a heck of a lot more comfortable. He's a former Goldman Sachs investment banker, so that means he was in the shit, for lack of a better term. He was there. He was around people, a lot of greed, which greed's not bad, but there's a lot of people with insecurities, and I think maybe he even found himself in an identity crisis, which I think we might get into a little bit in the podcast interview as well, man. I'm so blessed to bring you on, Neal. Thank you so much for coming on. Please introduce yourself to Time to Shine Today podcast Varsity Squad. But first, what's your favorite color and why?
Of course. Thank you for having me on, Scott. My favorite color is royal blue.
Nice.
It's a color that it's deep, it's genuine, it's rich, reminds me of space. Also a color of my favorite football team, the New York Giants, which I grew up loving.
Okay,
so
that's cool.
love the energy of that royal blue. Yeah.
Out of all the New York teams, the Giants are my thing. I'm a Detroit Lions fan, so I've had no love for ever my whole life. Being 51 years old, it was like almost 30 years before I was born that they won a championship. It wasn't even the Super Bowl then, though. So, no, I dig the royal blue, man. It actually fits your color wheel, you handsome devil. I love it, man. So let's get to your roots, man, because I know that you working on the East Coast, you immigrated here from India, and you went into one of the most competitive environments that's known to man on the East Coast money here in the United States. Let's get to the roots and how you really blasted through and how you get now to help people level up from a spiritual sense.
Absolutely. So my parents are the ones that actually came to the US from India. I've heard the story a million times. They came to the US with $7 in their pocket. They worked super hard. They grinded, they worked and went to school simultaneously. And they really set me and my sister up for tremendous success. And seeing them work so hard and really chase the American dream and achieve that for themselves, I had always wanted to raise the bar, because when you're given that level of incredible mentorship and role modelship, I really just wanted to be able to follow in those footsteps. And so I wanted to be an investment banker since the age of 12. And so we were asked in 7th grade to write a paper and create business cards of what we wanted to be. And so mine was an investment banker and owning my own firm, Bakshi Bucks. And so life has a brilliant way of, I continued on that path. I went to New York University, studied economics and history, worked in investment banking at Goldman Sachs for about 6.5 years, and worked at another firm for a year and a half before that. So about nearly a decade on Wall Street in total. Okay. And all this being said, I grew up in a spiritual family. So my parents raised me meditating since the age of 5. Man. And talk about a blessing, right?
Yes.
Talk about a blessing. And so I loved what I did. I worked in leveraged finance and structured finance capital markets and syndicate at Goldman Sachs. And what we did is we sold high yield bonds and leveraged loans. We structured debt instruments. We created capital structures for companies, very well-known companies that are your run of the mill you'll see driving down the street.
Yes, sir.
And over the course of my time there, I worked on $100 billion of transactions, talking to some of the largest investors in the world, CEOs, been on calls with Elon Musk as we did Tesla's inaugural bond deal. So
Yeah.
really fascinating world in banking that kind of led me to there.
That's awesome. And were your parents fully supportive of the investment banking side? And I'm not trying to be stereotypical, man. Okay. But I have a ton of Indian friends, a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of them get pushed into either engineering or into doctoring. Like, I don't have that many that are in the finance world. Did your parents push back, or did they let you, because of how they brought you up in meditation and whatnot, did they allow you to metaphorically spread your wings?
They gave me complete and free reign. It's really beautiful. They just supported me in whatever I wanted to do. And we had some family friends that worked in finance and investment banking or hedge funds. And I grew up going to Christmas parties at their houses and just like being around that energy. And so seeing that, I really wanted to emulate that. And similarly, my mom worked in healthcare finance. And so my sister took the healthcare side of that. She's a doctor. And I took the finance side of that. And I went into the banking world.
What's beautiful about what you just said is that you wanted to emulate it, not envy it. And that comes from your parents too, of the meditation and the freeing of the mind, and just not knowing, like, a lot of people get that green-eyed monster when they see people that are aware that they want to be, the envy of them, right? But man, you emulated them. That you're like wise way beyond your years, brother. May I ask your age?
Sure. I'm 30 years old. I actually turned 31 in about a month and a half.
Okay, wow. Okay, so you're a young man, which is fantastic in light years, and working over 100 billion. That's pretty incredible. So congratulations, man. I'm like a proud big brother over here, man. That's fantastic.
I appreciate it.
So, like, let's move into the journey of, kind of into the spiritual world, and like kind of maybe letting go of a little bit of the money, and not so much monetary, but the rat race of that, and how you really moved into and how you help people from there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So things were going fantastically well at Goldman. I did really well. I was a vice president there, and I was running a number of transactions and deals for clients. And it's basically like, if you can think about quintessential sort of Wall Street movies in a sense, it was that lifestyle. I was like really living that investment banker dream that you kind of see in the movies and that feeling growing up.
Billions and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I love those shows, man. I grew up more envying them, Neal, than emulating them, though, because my father loved him, best friend in the world, but he worked on the line at General Motors in Detroit, right? So I would see that big. I want it because I want to drive what they drive. You know what I'm saying? But sorry for cutting you off, but again, you're kind of worked into it. You made rank pretty quick, and we'll go from there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, all good. So then what happened is in mid 2020, actually 2 days after my birthday, my mom went in for a very routine 30-minute outpatient thumb surgery to fix a partially torn ligament right here in her thumb. She went in for the surgery, and they couldn't arouse her at the end of this procedure, which was 30 minutes. My dad was waiting in the parking lot, and she was intubated, rushed to the ER, and she was then put on life support. She was having severe seizure activity in the brain, and she was on life support for about 3 weeks before ultimately passing on. And that turned my entire world upside down. My mom was my best friend, my biggest role model, breadwinner. She was just the definition of love and kept our family. She was the glue of our family and kept even our extended family connected together. Thanksgiving was at our house, and she was really this just dynamic force of love that just kind of, when that was gone, I didn't even really know what to do. And so the first 6 months after that, through the end of 2020, we're kind of picking up the pieces for myself and my family.
Yeah.
Finding login passwords.
That was during COVID too. So you probably couldn't really be with her and stuff. I heard May 2020, so I'm so sorry, Neal, but go on. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's so sad to not have her here in her physical presence, but I know, and we'll get into this, she's guiding me from the other side. And it's been an incredible evolution in terms of the gifts she's been able to unlock in me as a result of this happening. And so fast forward, I basically pick up the pieces for my family in terms of how do we transfer mortgages and cars and all of this stuff, which is like no one tells you, like titles, deeds, providing debt certificates, talking to insurance companies. Like no one teaches you this stuff. And so I basically took the lead on all of that. And then fast forward, I went back into my spiritual roots when this happened. And so my family and I would meditate while she was in the hospital all together, sending her healing energy. And after this happened, I first sought meditation out again in my life as a way of gaining solace and peace within myself. And I went deeper into meditation than I have ever gone in my entire life. And mind you, I've been meditating for 25 years
Right. I
at
was
this
going to
point.
say, yeah.
Yeah. And so in the first 3 months of 2021, I actually started to receive messages from outside of me, message saying, you need to help people. You need to help people. You need to help people. Every single day for 3 straight months, January through March, I got the same message. I was like, I have no idea what this means. How do I go about doing this? Like, I wanted to be an investment banker. Like, this was my dream. And now I'm supposed to help people. And so then I friends came back into my life who had similarly lost parents very suddenly, who were like, what are your gifts that you can share with the world? And I was it's like, I don't really know. Like, I guess people say I'm kind of empathetic and non-judgmental, and I have a lot of wisdom to share with people. And that's been sort of a very consistent theme throughout my life. And she was like, okay, like take that away and see what you can do with that. And I sat on that for a couple months and I was like, I have no idea. Interestingly, at that time, life coaching certifications came in my path. Jay Shetty, who is an
Hey,
incredible sort of
baby. Yeah.
figure. And I was drawn to him. I loved his book, Think Like a Monk. And
Think
then
like a
I
monk.
took
Yeah.
his coaching certification course
Did
and
you?
I tore through it. I went through it within 3 months. I graduated with over the amount of necessary live coaching hours that you need.
Yeah.
I graduated with well over the amount of self-study hours in terms of work that you need to integrate
That's awesome,
yourself.
Neal. Yeah.
And so over like 250 hours of coursework in 3 months while working my full-time job as a banker. And yes, like that's 80 to 100 hours a week on top of that. So where did I fit this in? I didn't really go out during this time. I didn't really see my friends. It's like, I'm kind of in this mode. I'm just being led by life right now.
Sure.
And then I was called to work with ayahuasca in the Peruvian Amazon and work with the Shipibo. Shipibo's there. And then started to learn energy healing and then became certified in breath work. And then all of these things just started to, instead of me pulling a dream of life behind me or climbing the corporate ladder behind me with this dream behind me saying, I need to climb up. And there's this weight and this luggage that I'm carrying up. This was a wave of just passion that I was riding. It was almost like I was being pulled forward instead of pulling forward the things that I was carrying forward. And this was just the path unfolding as I just allowed myself to surrender into saying, okay, this is where I'm supposed to go. And then the most interesting part about all of this and kind of where the title for my book, Banking on Angels, comes from, in 2021, I started to communicate with angels first through numbers. And I'm sure a lot of people out there see repeating numbers, angel numbers. And so this was, I take my numbers seriously as a banker. And this wasn't just like, oh, 1111 here, 222 here. It was no joke, probably 20 times a day, I would see these number patterns. I'm like, okay, there's something way broader happening here. I started to research that, go into that, meditate on it. And then I started to say, okay, like there's a language here. And even Pythagoras, the Greek philosopher from 600 BC, you may remember from your high school geometry class, the Pythagorean theorem, he talks about, he's the father of numerology. And he talks about all numbers having an innate vibration. And when they're put into sequences or repeated in patterns, they carry a frequency. And then so I start to go deeper into like understanding the number language. And then I start to say, okay, if there's angels trying to communicate with me, can I receive physical signs from them? So I started to ask for signs and I would receive them, be it either words written in a billboard or words in an advertisement or something on Instagram as I was scrolling through it, or I would go for a run in the morning and see a message written out in chalk of something that I asked for to see. And then I was like, okay, there's like something way deeper happening.
Way deep.
Started to pay more attention to the angel signs, rainbows, feathers, even like random songs coming on shuffle on Spotify.
There's nothing coincidental, man. Absolutely.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. There's even the people you meet in your life, they're not coincidences.
No way,
Everyone
man.
is there for a reason.
Yeah. I love it. And you really work this into a coaching program now, correct? That you help people, really like level up in pretty much any situation that they may be in, correct? Like you don't have to niche into something, like you can really help a broad spectrum. Am I saying that correctly?
That is 100% accurate,
Okay.
because what it is, so yes, I use a life coaching framework that I
Yeah.
learned from Jay, which is helping people get to their goals and outcomes.
Yeah.
But I infuse a lot of this spiritual wisdom and knowledge as it relates to either angel wisdom or just, I was raised on this path of Paramahansa Yogananda, who incredible guru who teaches how to basically use scientific forms of meditation
Okay.
of breath control and pranayama. And so I infuse all of and energy techniques, energy healing, how to create better boundaries from an energetic perspective. Because we're here on this physical level and physical plane, but this is just the last manifestation of the thought thinking itself, which is what we
Yeah.
are. And
Right.
so that's why you create your life through the thoughts that you think, the words that you
Absolutely.
speak. It's all
Sure.
very, very true.
Right.
And so, yes, that's exactly what I do. I primarily have been working with startup founders, biotech executives, CEOs, CFOs, and it's fascinating, financiers, because they operate on a very high level on the physical plane.
Yeah. Their
And then when they're able
vibration's
to
high. Yeah.
tap in, exactly. And then when they're able to tap into the energetics behind everything, it makes everything that's happening in their life flow so much more
Bro.
seamlessly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's
And
a
on top of
harmony
that,
that's found in what you do. There's harmony versus balance. Like I'm not a big believer in balance. I'm a really big believer in harmony. And the people that I coach and the speeches that I've given on multiple stages about harmony, where like balance is kind of zero, right? Where harmony is like, it's like, okay, let's liken it to like a jazz band where like God or spirituals, the drums, your personal growth is the guitar, the horns is your community, and on through the 8 pillars. And if one of them's out of tune, it doesn't sound that great. I'm not asking to be Beethoven on the piano or John Bonham on the drums or Eddie Van Halen guitar. It's just, but if you can have someone like you that can really help them build that harmonic hustle, is what I call it, into their life, that's just beautiful. So let's move forward a little bit. If you're working with somebody and you're kind of in the discovery period, what is any of your secret sauce that you may use? And I know that's a really broad way to say it, but secret sauce, if you don't mind sharing, to maybe help them identify that blind spot that they have.
yeah. So a lot of it is based on this concept of a life audit. So what I'll do with people is take an extended period of time, 2+ hours, and go through
Thank you for
people's
doing that.
lives in extensive detail. Like we are examining what's happening in your relationship life, what's happening in your family life, what's happening in your career,
Yeah.
finances, physical health, physical environment, leisure time, social life.
Love
Because
this.
what happens is, life is this interconnected wheel. And when you
Yeah.
see where there's the biggest gaps, you can first target those biggest areas where you want to see the biggest improvement. And naturally, because you are a multidimensional human that has all these facets of life, you will see ripple effects across all the other areas of your life once you
Yeah.
start to see these improvements. And it's really like I've noticed some of the most basic little building block habits that just need to be put in place. And then once you're able to hold people accountable
Yeah.
towards those specific habits that they feel aligned and called to within their own self, it's like that wave that carries itself forward, because that consistency builds and builds and builds like a snowball rolling down a hill.
That's like harmony, man. It's you're beautiful. Like you were like brothers with different mothers, man. It's like that we look at things really the same way. And I love that you said you find the gaps within the wheels, and then you help, either put them back into congruence so the harmony happens. That's beautiful. So when you're working with somebody maybe still in the discovery period, Neal, is there any good question that you wish they would ask you but never do?
Fascinating question. Let me give this a quick couple second thought.
I'm not saying it to trip you up because I mean, I know that in my former life, I would have been like, listen, man, like foo spiritual shit. That's how I would have been. Now I'm meditating. I'm up to 7 minutes right now for me. Huge.
Amazing. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Pranayama every Tuesday. So I get, Ashtanga yoga and the Mysore style, I start adding it inch by inch. It's a cinch, into my life. Right. Is there any good question that when they start sitting with you, that they would ask you?
Yeah. So to answer your question in terms of what is a question I wish I were asked from people that they don't necessarily ask me is,
Yeah.
how can I more deeply understand who I really am? because the biggest
Wow.
disconnect that, yes, yeah, I gotta let that sink in for a second. How can
Yeah.
I understand who I really am? Because
Deeply understand, baby. Yes. Yes.
the biggest
Wow.
disconnect is we go through our lives believing that we are this story of this physical body that we live in with all the emotional history and mental history or past traumas or incidences that may have happened or
Yeah.
these goals that we want to achieve. But that's just part of the narrative and the storyline that we live in this egoic construct of this physical body.
Yeah.
But who you really are, you're a limitless soul that has the capability and capacity to do anything. Change is the nature of matter. Changeless is the nature of spirit.
Wow. Yeah. That limitless capacity to change anything. And with all of it, like, I believe in coaching is everyone knows what they want, but they don't know how to talk themselves into it. Right. And within their, like, the challenge resides right in that heart. Right. But so does the answer. And someone like you, I can just see that light bulb going off because you're not consulting them. You're not saying, go do this. They're actually coming up with themselves. I can actually, from a view like a fly on the wall, see your coaching session. That's just fantastic. So, Neal, have you seen the movie Back to the Future? I know you're a little young, but have you seen the movie Back to the Future?
I have a
Okay,
while ago.
let's get in
Long
that
time.
DeLorean with Marty McFly, man. Let's go back to the
Okay.
18-year-old Neal. Okay, so at
Mm,
12, 13 years ago now. The 18-year-old Neal, what kind of knowledge nuggets, as we call him here, Time Shine today, what kind of knowledge nuggets might you drop on him? Not to change anything, but to maybe shorten his learning curve, blast through and level up just a little bit quicker.
yeah. It's easier than you think it is. Almost always, actually, always. It's easier than you think it is. Love yourself and your body completely. You can want to continue to make changes and grow and achieve what you want to do, but it starts with accepting completely with self-acceptance where you are and loving that and loving your body for what it is
Wow.
able to do and offer you. There was so much body shame in my life growing up because I played football. I got recruited to play in college. I was a center and a defensive tackle. So I was 220 pounds. And there was a lot of like, I know, talk
The
about
hell?
like all the
Giant Indian
all the
man.
lives
Dude.
all, I know, all the lives I've lived. I know it's and so there was this just self-love is number one and like how do you cultivate that self-love at a young age is so powerful.
Love it. Love it. Thank you for being transparent. Also, that you played center because I would have never, never would have thought that ever, man. So, how do you want your dash remembered then, man? The little line in between your incarnation date and your expiration date. How does Neal want his dash remembered? Life date and death date. Hopefully, it's gajillion years down the line. How do you want to be remembered, brother?
Yeah, and this is actually an awesome exercise I do with my coaching clients as well. It's called my ultimate desire. And that ultimate desire is just a few sentences boiled down into what is your ultimate desire in life? And so my ultimate desire, I wrote this back in December 2020 after I went through all of this stuff and I started my self-love journey. My ultimate desire is to be someone who people turn to for spiritual wisdom and advice in terms of how to navigate the dualities of the material world and the spiritual world, and to be able to give back to others in all kinds of ways, financially, through guidance, through help, through love, and being someone who is able to live in love, live in service to love, and live in joy, and be that example for people to embody themselves. Because I think the greatest examples come from the embodiment of it. And so being
Sure.
that embodiment of loving service to others, living in joy,
Yeah.
and allowing myself to be someone who goes through life able to handle and navigate
Yeah.
the things that come up in a very conscientious and and ease and graceful way.
I love it. You like, Steve Farber, he wrote a bunch of books, awesome, fantastic coach. He said, and I hear it just coming through this microphone into my speaker ears from you, that do what you love in the service of people that love what you do. They can see that you absolutely love what you do. So they are going to be, become 100% on board. I love that. So, but Neal, what do you think then people misunderstand about you the most?
Ooh, great question. I don't think I'm necessarily that misunderstood. I I love to be someone who is completely in their truth and is able to shine that light from who they are in their authentic selves. I think something that may be misunderstood is maybe that like I go through life alone. And so that's the thing. I think so many people struggle with that because everyone thinks
Yes.
that they need to handle life alone. And
Yeah.
I had that for the longest time. And I'm still kind of going through that in terms of like asking for help when I need help. Or like the
Yeah.
biggest thing is I talk to my angels every day, multiple times a day, all the
Yeah.
time. So they're actually my higher guidance that is always coming through. But you're not meant to go through life alone. We're human beings, all the same species here for a reason. We are instinctually and we have the desire for tribal connection and connection to others. And so many times
Absolutely.
people think they need to go through this life alone, whether it's someone who's struggling with mental illness or a difficult time in their life. And we feel like we're very alone and no one's going to be able to relate to us or no one has the capacity to help us or take us on. And I think that's the biggest thing that we're there really is no such thing as being self-made. I don't believe it because we're
100%.
all
There's
yeah.
so many giants that I've stood on the shoulders of, brother. I was told when I was young, when you don't know something, get your asking gear. Don't be afraid to
Mm,
ask, man. You know what I'm saying? And I do. Even to this day, I pick people that are 30 years old brain that I feel that are vibing in my tribe. And like I'll pick your brain and be like, Neal, what do you think about this? I have like 5 or 6 people there between the ages of 25 and 32 that I will reach out to. I also know that there's a maturity that they still have to go through just in the physical world,
sure.
but I'm so blessed that people like you exist. Time to Shine Today podcast, Varsity Squad. We are back. And Neal, we're going to meet one day. I can see it. It's already into fruition. It's going to happen. And we're going
The
to
intention's
talk.
out in the field.
Yes. We're going to talk about a lot of these questions. I'll probably spend, an hour, 15, 20 minutes to an hour on each one of them. But within the lightning round, level up lightning round, you got 5 seconds with no explanations, and it can be done. Okay,
5 seconds.
easily.
Okay, let's do
All right,
it.
no
Let's do it.
explanations. You ready to level up?
I'm ready to level
All
up.
right, Neal, what is the best leveling up advice you've ever received?
It's easier than you think.
Yes. Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
Daily meditation.
Awesome. So you see me walking down the street, you're like, man, Fergie looks like he's in his doldrums a little bit, right? And other than banking on angels, what book might you hand me to help me level up?
Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda.
I have that on my bookshelf. I haven't read it yet. I'm sad to say, but I actually have that. I love that. What's your most commonly used emoji when you text?
Ooh, there's 3. It is the heart, it is the angel, and the smiling angel emoji, and the gratitude sort of prayer hands.
Beautiful. Nicknames growing up?
Man, this is going to be really funny. Cheesy Puff, because I love to eat cheesy puffs. And
when you were
yeah,
220 in high school.
Kind
I love it. Tell me a hidden talent or superpower that you have that no one knows about.
Ooh, that no one knows about. I would say the ability to, oh, man, I was going to say like the ability to feel into people's energy and understand what's going on without needing to even speak to them.
Love it.
I guess most people don't really know that, but that's sort of what.
That's a superpower. Absolutely. Chess, checkers, or Monopoly?
Chess, checkers, or Monopoly. I'm going to go with Monopoly just because my old
Love
life,
right? Quickly, a headline for your life.
Live in love.
Love it. Go-to ice cream flavor.
Mint chocolate chip.
All right, my man. So there's a sandwich called the Bakshi Cheesy Puff. Build that sandwich for me.
Okay. So I'm actually gonna use the sandwich from my hometown growing up, Princeton, New Jersey. There's a place called Hoagie Haven.
Okay.
One of my favorite sandwiches growing up when I ate meat was called the Sanchez. It was this is why I was 220 pounds. It was French fries, mozzarella sticks, fried chicken fingers, and this like special sauce they made called Sanchez sauce. And I put lettuce on it, and like you literally eat it in a hoagie. Could not be
I love it.
More unhealthy, but it was delicious.
Oh, yeah. It's like a heart attack on a plate. I'm actually in the middle of a 72-hour fast right now. I do it 3 times a year. And it actually sounds good, the good stuff. So favorite charity and an organization you like to give your time or money to?
Yeah. So favorite organization is Self-Realization Fellowship. That is the
Okay.
spiritual path I was raised on, and the meditation that I learned how to become who I am. That's one. And also a lot of there's a number of foundations out there supporting Alzheimer's research, and my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and just sort of seeing how she went through that process and how my mom took care of her. That's a cause that's very, very dear to my heart.
Good, man. Appreciate that. And last question, we can elaborate on this one a little bit, but what's the best decade of music? 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s? Or for
Ooh.
you, 2000s too.
No, yeah, no. I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with like I grew up on classic rock, so Led Zeppelin, AC/DC,
What?
Pink Floyd. Yeah, that was that was the music I was
Bro,
raised on. So I'm gonna have to go with that, like just classic rock.
love it, man. I love it. So how can we find you, Neal?
So you can find me through my website, my name, nealbakshi.com, NEALBAKSHI, on
Beautiful.
Instagram at Neal, NEAL.Bakshi, BAKSHI. And those are the two best ways you can find me. You can also find me on LinkedIn and TikTok, but Instagram and my website are really where you want to
I
look me
love
up.
it.
And also, yeah.
And Neal, tell us about your book, Banking on Angels, man. It looks like it kind of released earlier this year in 2023.
Yeah. So I have a copy with me right here. The book actually wrote itself in 6 weeks in last year in 2022. Then I took a couple months off, came back to it and edited it, added in a lot more authenticity with the angels, and published it this year. It became a bestseller in 10 categories on Amazon. And the book is my story as an investment banker mixed with my ability to communicate with angels following my mom's passing. And then it is a basically personal growth, spiritual growth, practical toolkit and tool belt. So practical tools and techniques that you can put into your life. Simple 5-minute single page journal entry that I use every single day that has changed the way my mind works. It's basically a Tim Ferriss of spirituality.
Love
If I
it.
can
I love
analogize
it.
that. Yeah.
I have the gratitude sandwich that my clients have to eat every day, where the top layer is your intentions, also who you're going to send good vibes to, big wins from the last 24 hours. The middle is your worries. Go ahead and list them. And the bottom is 14 things you're grateful for. And the 15 write a one sentence love letter to yourself for the day. And that can squeeze that negativity right out. So it sounds like we're kind of in alignment with what we do with the stuff. So
Yes.
Squad, whoever first puts, and I'll know you've listened, broad spectrum in any of our social, I don't care if it's LinkedIn, I don't care if it's Pinterest, you can text it to us at 561-440-3830. We'll be happy to get you a copy of Neal's book on Time to Shine Today's Dime. And I can't wait. I'm actually going to buy it on Kindle now. He has agreed to send me a signed copy, which will go on my bookshelf, and I'm going to read it on my flight to Connecticut tonight. So, Squad, Neal, if you would, please be so kind as to leave us with one last knowledge nugget we can take with us, internalize, and take action on.
Absolutely. That simple nugget is lean into one thing that brings you joy every single day. That will elevate your energetic vibration. That will bring you into an ultimate state of receivership because you'll be grateful for that thing that brings you joy. So it's a way of infusing gratitude and joy together. And then you become a magnet for the things that you want to attract in your life. So one thing of joy a day, and lean into it and actually do it.
That's beautiful. And Squad, I don't know about you, man, but I have like pages of notes with my good friend Neal here. He was raised by parents that really let his metaphorical wings fly. He's raised kind of in meditation and gave Neal the free rein to really experience life. One thing that stood out, and I mentioned it earlier in the podcast, he wanted to emulate the people that he wanted to kind of be like instead of envy them. And that's a lesson that I love to teach the young people, is like, don't envy, emulate. That's beautiful. Be that person. And if you don't know how, get your asking gear. The people usually that have made it to where you want to go to, they're happy to kind of give you a little bit of, inch along, So, he talks about like meditating to gain solace and peace. And like through that, he received messages where he can help so many people. And he's a big believer in like the whole Zig Ziglar. To me, what I was raised on is we can get anything we want by helping others get what they want, and instead of, he mentioned, instead of the weight of luggage in his life, he started riding the Passion Way, which he's really got into what he was seeing and that's going to come to fruition for people. He can help people because of what he does from a broad spectrum. It doesn't matter what niche you might be in, Neal can definitely help you out. He believes in having a life audit, and it goes really extensive in detail. He does like 2 hours of power with his first meeting, right? He finds that wheel of interconnectedness, and Neal will help you fill those gaps and make them more harmonious. He wants you to ask your coach, if it's not Neal or if it's not me, how can I more deeply understand who I am? And how can I be the master of my story? Can I have limitless capability? I mean, my guy Neal here is planting trees. He's never going to sit in the shade of. I can see it right now. If you don't know something, again, get your asking gear, and that it's easier than you think. Love yourself, embody completely, accept yourself. Self-love is huge. It's key. He lived completely in his truth, and he really wants you to do it as well. He does it for the intention, not the attention, squad. That's what it really came through to me from this interview. And he wants you to lean into one thing that brings you joy every single day. And that's what my boy Neal does. He levels up his health. He levels up his wealth. He's humble. He's handsome. He's hungry. He's earned his varsity letter here at Time to Shine today. Thank you so much for coming on, Neal. Absolutely love your guts, brother.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure, and can't wait to see the rest of your listener base continue to level up.
That's awesome. Chat soon, my man.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Time to Shine Today podcast. Proudly brought to you by Sutter & Nugent Real Estate Excellence, who can be reached at 561-249-7266 and online at www.sutterandnugent.com. If you're a business owner or professional who would like to be interviewed on Time to Shine Today, please visit timetoshinetoday.com/guest. If you like this episode, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. There's a link in the show notes to our website. Also there, you will see our recommended resources. We hope that you will support our show by supporting them. If you like what you've been listening to, it'd be great if you could just give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe while you're at it. I'm your host, Scott Ferguson, and until next time, let's level up. It's our time to shine.